There was what I call a dead eye epidemic. It looked like a fishmonger's slab at times because so many of them. Now, when we're in love, one of the biggest cues, tells, giveaways is the eye expression. We use a lot of eye contact with the other person. We almost can't drag our eyes off their face because we want to read them. We want to see if their pupils are dilated, because that means that a physiological effect of being in love. So without realizing it, we're checking out for pupil dilation, all sorts of things. And even when we're not looking at them, we have this kind of in love eye expression. It's the one that when somebody comes in at work, you'll say, oh, you've fallen in love, because they can't stop. It's like an eye smile. I didn't see much of that last night. I saw a lot of dead eyes, a lot of people that looked like they were maybe thinking, did I get the right person here? There was one piece of genuinely authentic chemistry last night, and that was from Maya Jama.
The public wanted you to get back together. I mean, I can relate. I did have a lot of people saying I should get back with my ex. You know, sometimes it's just not what you're ready for. He's over there now, so it worked out.
Maybe it was the wrong thing to do, because if you were looking at all the others and thinking, are they in love, are they not? Suddenly you got this wonderful blueprint of what being in love looks like, which is when she mentioned the fact that Stormzy was sitting behind her. And when she looked back at them, you saw these rounded cheeks, you got the suppressed mouth smile, and you got that gleam in the eye. So it was almost bad to be contrasting with some of the people that she was interviewing and chatting to. But it was a great show nevertheless. Georgia and Toby, I called them the Dead-Eye Twins. I love the pair of them. I think they should have won, not because they looked as though they were in love. I think they're just great reality TV characters. Maybe not together particularly, but I thought they did their duty in there. You know, they'll come up with the goods. There was very little in the way of synchronicity between the two of them. They clearly were gutted when they came false, and I quite like that. I mean, they look really upset and shocked. What we didn't get was what's called gestural finishing from these two. Now, it's something to look out for. Don't look for the big signals of attraction. Look for things like the hands, the finishing gestures. And so when you saw a lot of the couples there last night, the guy has got their arms around, they're all sitting in the same position. I don't know if they've been told to do it, but the guy got his arm around the woman had got a hand on thigh. When you got the arm around the woman's shoulder, with a lot of them, the hand then wasn't touching. Now, if you got your arm around somebody that you really love and fancy, you kind of tend to squeeze the arm. You communicate with that hand with your partner, but you also show sexual attraction. Not a lot of that going on with those two. Georgia, I absolutely loved her. One of the best incongruent body language moments. She kept saying, I'm so happy. Tell your face that. It wasn't really coming across. And he was doing some really weird mouth gurning. When she was talking, he was pulling some very weird mouth expressions. At one point, the lower jaw started to jut when she said, oh, we're really strong. I mean, bravo to those two for trying, because they really were. Sophie and Josh, for me, they would have been the good traditional winners. If you wanted to see some form of what was looking like congruent chemistry, I think it came from those two. They look quite sweet together. They seem to actually like one another, which is a bit rare in there. We got some gestural finishing when they were standing together. She'd often have her hands clamped over his. They'd be stroking one another. They used a lot of opportunity to be tactile together. Then when the result came through, the only thing that worried me slightly, he did come and sit there with Maya, and he really oversplayed, and I thought, I hope you're not detaching already, but you've got her dimpled smile. As I say, for me, those two probably had the most in the way of the signals of perhaps something genuine going on there. Jess and Callum, well, you know, this was a shock, really, wasn't it? This wasn't the ending that I think anybody, including the producers, were expecting. I think that those two should have been the modern day Liz Taylor and Richard Burton, whatever you know, go in there, we're exes, we'll have a little bit of a battle, there'll be a will they, won't they, they'll pair off with that. And that should have been a really strong storyline. That ended with the two of them suddenly realising that they're absolutely madly in love, going off with the cash prize. Except that that didn't happen. So what we got last night was this really cringy interview where they, of course they did, they sat both the couples together, and most of the conversation was around the Jess and Callum thing. If you still think that you can see something going on between those two, don't doubt yourself too much, because there were some really odd signals between them. Jess looks almost physically disgusted by Callum, where when it comes up, her face goes into a bit of a sneer. And that made a little bit of a lie of the fact that, oh, we're really good friends, we've made friends in here. Why do you look still quite repulsed by the whole idea of the whole thing? Why aren't you laughing about it? Callum still shows some signs of interest, I think, and his eyes did look a little bit sad when he was listening to her speak, listening to the story. That was the top half of their body, so look down at their legs and their feet. Why were their legs crossed towards one another? That's quite unusual if you don't like somebody. Their feet were almost touching as well. And that's something else that you'd be very wary of. You know, you don't touch feet with somebody unless you're in a relationship with them. Callum's foot was doing little circles as well. Now that's normally a sign of kind of happiness when she was speaking. Hers was bobbing around. So those signals look related more to each other than the people that they were sitting there with. And I still don't think that Callum looks at Jess. He doesn't use a lot of eye contact with her. She's very smiley, very lovely, very supportive, but I don't see a lot of eye contact going on. And previously in the programme, before we got to the actual final, he was looking quite deflated. And again, when he was sitting with Jess, not a lot of gestural finish going on. So I still think there is something going on there. It might be hate, it might be love, it might be something in the middle. But, you know, I think they've probably got enough for another programme. I don't know, let's have exes on the beach in the villa or something, and here they go again. I think people quite rightly will still sense something in the air between those two. Tom and Molly, lovely. I love Tom. The only thing with Tom, it's regurgitated body language, and this is the problem with the show. We've seen them before. We've seen them before in the villa. We've seen them falling in love before. We've seen them looking smitten before. I've seen all those facial expressions from Tom, and he does a very good love face. I mean, give him his credit. But we'd seen it before with other. I couldn't even remember who it was with last time, but we've seen it with people that are not Molly, and that. It's a bit like when your best friend who you knew was in love with their ex, and then they bring a new partner and you go, yeah, you're in love, but you're also, we saw that face before. So a little bit worrying. And I have to say, if you want to see him absolutely sparkling with his facial expression and looking smitten, that was when he was talking to Maya. I mean, he was like, wow, not saying he fancied her, but much more animation. Very splayed body language in there when he was sitting on the sofa. Interestingly, him and Callum, though, they both had a leg splay, which is a sign of macho power, sexuality. But then they both had their hands in the fig leaf position, which is a self-protective crotch cover. So I'm not sure that they might have felt a bit threatened by their relationships. Molly, again, most of her reactions seem to be a little bit based on Callum that was going on. She didn't get much chance to get away from him as a topic, but good for them. You know, they deserve to win it, I suppose. They look great together, of course, and now they've got to go out and be a couple for quite a bit longer. But as I say, I think the public interest is going to be a bit more with Callum and Molly. I'm going to be the Grinch and say that I'm not sure that any of them will stay the course. I'm also going to be cynical because I know how it works, and it would be very much what their agents say to them when they come out, which would be things like, well, you know, we can get you into Dancing on Ice, but you have to split up just beforehand, or we can get you on X on the Beach, but by yourself. So, you know, or we've got this spin-off program where you're a couple and everybody will see you being in love. And I know that's being cynical, but it is their job. You know, and I think that's what counts, particularly with this second time around. Look, I'd love to say Sophie and Josh because I think she deserves it. She's, you know, her dimpled smile, she's so sweet, and they were fun together. Not 100% sure about Josh, but those two will be about as far as I will go.